Algebra 2 Pre-Calc, we're going to be doing Section 2, the vocabulary of a line. So with the vocabulary of a line, we're going to compute the slope of a line as it relates to a rate of change. We're going to match equations in point-slope form and slope-intercept form of a line to its graph. We're going to match the graph of a line to its equation, so it's either going to be in point-slope form or slope-intercept form. We're going to identify and interpret the slope, x-intercept, y-intercept, from the equation or graph of a line. We're going to find the equation of lines parallel and perpendicular to a given line. We're going to interpret models in their graph based on the rate of change. And we're also going to perform geometric transformations on a line. So for this entrance slip, as we begin, for each equation below, you're going to identify the slope of the line. And then in part B, you're going to identify the coordinate of a point any which lies on the line, and you're going to use what's actually given. So you're not going to be plugging anything in. You're not going to try and figure out what x is, if y is this, anything like that. And then you're going to write your answers in ordered pairs. So go ahead and pause the video and work on this entrance slip. Number 1, this is written in point slope form. So our slope is at 3. So therefore we have m, which represents slope, equals 3. And then we have this point that's on the line at -1, 4. In number 2, we have our slope, which is 2, and then we have our point that is on the line, 0, 5, and I know that it's 0, 5 because of that 5. That 5 is going to be the y-intercept, and on the y-intercept, it intercepts the y-axis, and is at 0, 5. This is just some Algebra 1 review. And down below, we'll go ahead and do some vocabulary review. So we have 2 different ways of writing the equation of a line. We have slope-intercept form, where we have a slope and the y-intercept. Now we always begin at the y-intercept. So we begin at the y-intercept, and then we move according to m, the slope, or the rate of change. For point slope form, m represents the slope, and then x sub 1, y sub 1. So notice we take x sub 1 and y sub 1, and we don't use that negative sign. So therefore, if we had a plus sign, so if it's x plus 4, we would change that to -4. And if this was y minus 2, it would just be 2. So x sub 1, y sub 1, this is a point on the line. Then we have a vertical line. Vertical lines are defined as x equals. The reasoning is, say that this is my graph. If I were to draw a line, it's going through the x-axis, so therefore we have x equals, and the slope, we say it's undefined. It's undefined because if you were riding along this line, it doesn't exist. You would fall off. My horizontal line, we have y equals and then a number. So again, I'm just going to draw a graph. The reason why it's y equals a number is because if we have a straight horizontal line, that's going through the y-axis, so therefore we have y equals. Now if you were walking along this line, you'd walk a straight line, so therefore we could say that the slope is 0. So we have more vocabulary review. For slope, slope is the rate of change. It's how much something is moving. So for the rate of change, we have the vertical change divided by the horizontal change, which just means we have the change in y all over the change in x. So you'll hear me say a lot, change in y over change in x, and that is slope, that is the rate of change, how far something is moving. For a positive slope, this is where we have an increasing line. So if I were to draw a fake graph right here, a line that's increasing from left to right, and then for my negative slope, we have a decreasing line. So if we were to draw our fake graph right here, from left to right, the line doesn't have to go through the origin, but the line itself is decreasing from left to right. We have our vertical intercept. A vertical intercept is the value at which the graph crosses the vertical axis. Vertical, that's the up and down one. Vertical is up and down, so we're talking about the y-axis. A horizontal intercept is the value at which the graph crosses the horizontal, which means the x-axis. So horizontal line that's going across, which represents the x-axis. Going down, we have some geometric transformations. So given the graph of f of x and a positive constant a. So whenever we have a's inside of the parentheses, so if a is positive or a is negative, the graph is either moving to the left or to the right. If it's plus inside, it's actually going to be moving left. And then as a is inside and we see that subtraction sign, it's actually going to be moving right. Whenever we have that a is outside, it's not next to the parentheses inside next to the x, it is outside, away from the x. It's actually going to be moving up and down, and the plus sign and the negative sign, the positive and negative sign actually matter. So the plus sign, we are going the way that we think, which is up, and then minus, we are going down. And then whenever we see a negative symbol in front of the x, we're actually reflecting the line over the x-axis. So if this is my axis, we are moving up and down. So here are some of our examples. So it says, given the graph of the line to the right, we're going to say that the x-intercept is p and the value of the slope is n. So x-intercept means that my graph is crossing the x-axis, is my x-intercept. So right here, this is my p. So we could say that p is equal to -2. And then we have the value of the slope is n. So I'm going to try and find another place where my line perfectly intersects with the grid marks. So I believe this is a perfect intersection. This is a perfect intersection, okay? So we have n for slope. It says that n is the slope. And we know that n is the change in y over the change in x. That's what slope is. So my change in y, so I'm going up. My line is increasing, so we're going up 2 over, and then I'm going to the right 1, 2, 3. So therefore my slope is 2 over 3. So we're going to be finding the value of p plus n. So I'm going to take -2 plus 2/3. Now I need to change this -2 so that it also has a denominator of 3 so that we can add the fractions. So in doing so, with a denominator of 3, I'd have to do 3 times 2 to get 6. So we have -6 over 3. And if I were to reduce this, -6 divided by 3, we would actually get 2. Now that the denominators are equal, we can add the numerators. -6 plus 2, that's -4 over 3. And that is our answer. On number 2, it says, given the graph of the line to the right, the value of the y-intercept is r. So therefore, my y-intercept, where this line perfectly crosses the y-axis, so we could say that r equals 5. And then in the second part, it said the value of the slope is q. Now from left to right, it's decreasing. And remember, slope is our change in y over our change in x. So I know that my slope is going to be negative, okay? And I'm just going to find where it perfectly intersects with our grid. This looks like it's about right here, okay? So remember, change in y. So I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3. We went down 3 over 1, 2, 3, 4. So we went to the right 4. So therefore, that is my slope. So we're going to find the value of r plus q. So we have 5 plus negative 3 over 4. We have to change the 5 so that it has a denominator of 4. So we can do 4 times 5 to get 20. And then 20 divided by 4 is 5, so we know that we did it correct. So we have 20 plus negative 3, which is 20 minus 3, which gives us 17 over 4. Number 3, it says, a line is graphed on the xy plane below. Which of the following is the equation of the line? So if you see here, this hits our origin at 0. Alright, and it looks like all of these are in the form of y equals mx plus b. So we have y equals mx plus b. We know that b is 0 because that is where my line hits the y-axis. So let's figure out what m is. Let's figure out what our slope is. So I'm going to find somewhere where we have a perfect intersection with our grid. Looks like right here would work. Alright, and we have to do our change in y divided by our change in x. So we're going to go y 1, 2, 3 down over 1, 2 to the right. So therefore my answer is C. Now right away we could have crossed out A and B. We know those would not have been true because from left to right that's a negative slope. So if you see that right away, then we would have been only in between C and D. Right, number 4, it says a line is graphed in the xy plane below. Which of the following is the equation of the line? So if you see, my line is going through the y-axis. That's one thing that we see. It's going through the y-axis. So therefore, we can't have anything to do with x. So I can go ahead and cross off B and D. Nothing to do with x because it's going through the y-axis. I see that it doesn't have a slope, so perfect. No slope. And the other thing that I notice is it does have a y-intercept, right? So therefore, we do have a b equals 3.5. Well, let's see. If we were to divide each side by 3.5 right here, all right, everything would cancel. Right here, though, if we were to add 3.5 to each side, we do get y equals 3.5. And we know that y, that's the y-intercept, just like b is my y-intercept, so therefore my answer is C. Number 5, which of the following graphs is the equation of, 4y equals 2/3 x minus 8. So if you see, for this particular problem, we have 2/3 right here, and that is a positive slope. Even when we move this 4 to the other side, it's still going to remain positive because 4 is a positive. Alright, so this is also going to remain positive, so I can go ahead and cross off A, and I can also cross off C, because both of those have negative slopes. So I know for sure it's going to be a positive slope. We know that this has to do with our y-intercept, and if we move the 4 to the other side using either multiplication or division, right, if we were to divide by 4, we'd end up with negative 2, right? So therefore, we have a negative y-intercept, or my y-intercept is negative 2. The one that intercepts at negative 2 is B. Finally, number 6, we are given the equation y equals ax plus b is graphed in the xy plane. A and b are positive constants, which of the following could be the graph of y equals negative ax minus b in the xy plane. So because we went from positive to negative, I need a negative y-intercept and a negative slope. Therefore, my only answer is A.